Have you ever rehearsed a massive apology in your head, preparing for the absolute worst, only to be met with total grace? In a first-century Middle Eastern village like the one seen in this sepia photograph, family honor and inheritance dictated everything. A person's identity was completely tied to their household. When the younger son in the famous parable demanded his share of the inheritance early, he was committing a profound cultural insult. He was essentially telling his father, "I wish he were dead." A Jewish son who squandered his family's wealth among outsiders faced a severe consequence. The community could perform a kezazah ceremony, publicly shattering a clay pot before him to declare him permanently cut off from his people. The prodigal son is returning with absolutely nothing. He is walking up that long dirt road into a community legally and culturally prepared to destroy his identity forever. As he makes that walk, his mindset is entirely transactional. He knows he has forfeited his rights as an heir, and he expects to face a courtroom, not a loving family. So he prepares a precise three-part legal defense. First, he will admit his guilt. Second, he will declare his total unworthiness. Third, he will ask to be taken on as a hired servant. He believes his restoration is a contract he has to negotiate. He plans to trade whatever is left of his sonship for a probationary yoke of slavery, hoping to slowly earn his way back. The father spots his son from a great distance, long before the boy even reaches the village limits. Look at the portrait of this dignified elderly patriarch. Men of this age and status in the ancient Middle East simply did not run. To do so, the father had to gather up his heavy robes, expose his legs, and abandon every ounce of his public composure. He sprints because he is deliberately intercepting the boy. He has to reach his son before the elders do, absorbing the public humiliation himself before anyone can enact judgment or break a pot. The father's first act of grace is physical. He creates a shield with his own reputation, redirecting the community's outrage away from the disgraced son and onto his own humiliated posture. The Greek text says the father epepisen epiton trakalon autou. Literally, he fell upon his neck. The son is likely bowed low in exhaustion and shame, meaning the elderly father has to physically stoop down into the dirt to reach him. The son walked all those miles, expecting to have the heavy yoke of a servant placed upon his neck. Instead, the father wraps his own arms around it. Luke uses the Greek verb kataphileo. The prefix kata transforms the action into repeated, fervent, and affectionate kissing. And he does this while the son is still covered in filth and smelling of pigs. The father doesn't ask him to wash up first. The relational acceptance completely precedes the physical cleansing. The father's physical stooping and repeated kisses claim the son before the rehearsed apology can even begin. Despite this overwhelming embrace, the son stubbornly launches into his rehearsed legal speech right there on the open road. He gets through the first two parts of his contract perfectly. He confesses his sin, and he declares his total unworthiness to be called a son. But if you read the text in Luke 15:21, there is a critical omission. The father interrupts the boy before he can speak the third part, completely cutting off the request to become a hired servant. The father utterly refuses to negotiate sonship. The interruption proves that grace silences our shame and outruns any attempt we make to earn our salvation. The father immediately pivots to his servants, issuing a rapid-fire sequence of commands to physically restore the boy before they even step foot inside the house. First, he calls for the best robe. Throwing this over his son instantly covers his external shame and visibly restores his dignity in front of the watching neighbors. Then, he calls for a ring. A heavy gold signet ring like this one was an official instrument of family authority. Placing it on the son's hand legally rejects any possibility of him living as a servant. Finally, sandals. In the ancient world, slaves often walked barefoot, while free family members wore dignified footwear like this leather sandal. Because this extravagant reclothing happens out in the open, it acts as a public, legal justification. The father definitively reestablishes the boy as an heir, permanently silencing any judgment from the community. It is remarkably easy to adopt the son's transactional mindset. We approach God clutching our self-condemning, carefully rehearsed speeches, bracing for a courtroom. But the literal text of this story proves God does not require us to clean ourselves up or survive a probationary period to secure his love. His mercy is swift enough to interrupt our shame, restoring our true identity as his children, before our own words can condemn us.